Good afternoon, everyone. It's July 20th, and it's 95 degrees outside. And you guys chose the SSB. You guys chose Joanna de Angelis, Plenitude, Chapter 9, or let's say Session 7 of this discussion, over the beach, over the pool, and all the good things that we have in the summer. So, good. Great accomplishment. And I'm saying this because some time ago, I would choose also the beach over this. And I'm not ashamed to say it. It's the choices that we make in life, as well as in connection with the necessities that we have in life, the growth that we have, when we choose a moment like this over the other things that we have in life. Not that we shouldn't acknowledge life on planet Earth, in the physical body, but it's important, truly important for us to think that we're all thinking together, this room is full of incarnated ones and discarnated ones, missing a couple friends here and there, but they're traveling, and it's natural that we sometimes have to take a break. But it's good to see everyone, and it's good to be here as well, because it's definitely a moment, for me at least, that I have been embarked in this journey to think better, to wish better, and to act better. Not there yet, but at least in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, remember that study? So tonight we have quite a bit to go over. As I thought that not studying one or two chapters and presenting those two chapters, those three chapters, as we did in the first sessions, that it would be easier. It's not, because the content is heavy. Heavy in the sense that she brings a lot of information. One paragraph can lead us into a huge discussion, and it would take us throughout the night. Obviously, we cannot do that. One day, perhaps, we'll get to that level. Right now, we only have an hour and 15 minutes. So there's a lot to talk about in the session 7. And it's, as we mentioned, to talking about suffering, so we can get to the healthy, so we acknowledge the suffering, we acknowledge the difficulties of life that we created. We talked about a lot of the responsibility that we have in this path, in previous paths as well, that got into the suffering that we're nowadays, and now the turn moment with the pathways to health, right? That we discussed last session, which we will see a little bit here. And tonight, we'll give a continuation into this change, into talking about the process of self-healing. When we talk about the process of self-healing or self-healing, that means that we are suffering. That means that we are in a tough situation, in a tough condition. So now we're like, okay, if we're trying to heal something, there's a wound, there is a tough situation, right? There is an inflammation, if we can call it that way, and we have to change. But how are we going to change? Chapter 8, as we said, we saw that Joanna de Angelis reminds us about the idea of benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, and forgiveness for offenses is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood. Talking about the charity, talking about the changes that we have to apply in our lives. For charity love in its highest expression to be authentic, it requires the illumination of those who practice, affording them at the same time a constant refinement of purposes that lead to self-denial and victory over the primitive dominant tendencies. So analyzing ourselves, analyzing who we are, what's going on, what is my thought, how can I change? And she proposed the eightfold path for salvation as Buddha recommended, right? As we noticed from the beginning of the book, Joanna de Angelis is extracting a lot of the Buddhist teachings along with Christianity, along with Jesus' teachings and Spiritism to bring us this healthy state of mind and heart, right? So they were believing rightly, wanting rightly, talking rightly, operating rightly, living rightly, corrective effort, thinking rightly, and meditating rightly. And we talked about this idea of wanting rightly, right? That, and we'll see again tonight that how is important for us to focus, for us to. I'm just going to turn this off. With this here, hopefully the camera is picking up, Alba, and we'll leave it at that. It's important for us to acknowledge and understand who we are as well in terms of our capacities, because especially when we are suffering, we forget. And those around us, and we'll see our take when we're not suffering, but others around us are suffering, on how important is our help towards others, right? So, with this in mind, because I think this is the groundwork of the change that she's going to bring tonight, on chapter, or not tonight, on chapter 9. She says the following, and there's a lot of text, and some of them I will jump because I'll probably say it before we get to it. We'll process it as quick as we can, but there are certain parts that I need you to pay attention, because if I'm bringing here, I mean, I wish I could remember all these things, but it's a lot of work that she brings to us and a lot of good information. Human beings possess invaluable, untapped resources just waiting to be channeled appropriately. Among them, bioenergy is a source of inexhaustible potential misused out of ignorance and neglect, unconsciously squandering precious forces. Okay, again, as I mentioned, one of the paragraphs we could talk a whole night, but this is the groundwork. Each one of us is entitled to manipulate, as we said on session 6 as well, the energies around ourselves. The moment that we make a decision, we manipulate it a whole lot. The moment that we acknowledge that we have the SSB to go tonight and to be there, despite the weather, despite this or that, the difficulties that we have in our lives, we manipulate the environment. And congratulations for that. And the many other things, the million, thousands of decisions that you have made today, we manipulate the environment. This bioenergy that we were talking about, to be more precise, and we can go back to questions, I believe, 65 or to 80 something of the Spirit's book. We'll see this bioenergy is the energy that we use to connect us, spirit, to connect us, our paraspirit with the physical body, us with the physical body. And this is extracted from the universal cosmic fluid. The energies that is surrounding the planet Earth right now is the same energy, but manipulated by thousands of minds, millions of minds, right? So we'll bring this to a smaller scale. Let's think about our small world over here now. It's summer. We still feel, even though the AC is kicking in, but we still feel warm, and we're thinking about what's going to happen, what is Leo presenting to us, and all these things. We are manipulating somehow this environment. We feel comfort to a certain degree because we're vibrating the same way. Now, if we were to display or talk about something that is detrimental to our minds and our hearts, we will feel the jolt, right? So think about that. The things that we do in our lives, the things that we feel, so on and so forth. We possess this ability to manipulate, and this is at our disposal. If we're not using, as she's saying, untapped resources, because we're not going deep and saying, I need to utilize this. I need to understand how to utilize this. And sometimes we use it in detrimental ways. We use it in detrimental ways. The way we think, the way we choose. Remember when we just mentioned about wanting right, thinking and living right? Does it happen rightly every time? Obviously not. Otherwise, we wouldn't have talked about on chapter 8.
So we have to change. And this is how she's going to get a little bit deeper into that tonight. Invisible to ordinary optics, bioenergetic radiation goes unnoticed as it exerts its influence on interpersonal relationships, provoking either waves of affinity or animosity, depending on whether they proceed from a morally healthy or morally sick individual. Absorbed by the perispirit, bioenergy acts upon it by way of its own field, renewing or perturbing the perispirit's forces according to the type of discharge. Bioenergy is responsible for interpersonal attraction, paralleling the attraction that happens in the molecular, cellular, gravitational, and universal fields, from the micro to the macro. Okay? To finalize this part over here, similar to the invisible magnetic field that surrounds the Earth and which is only detected by special equipment, bioenergy is also perceived only through paranormal means or ultra high speedy camera using ultra sensitive film. So let's take a step back here. I know it's a lot of information at one point. Joanna de Angelis is not talking about my relationship on how I use this bioenergy with this computer. She's not. I mean, it is obviously. I can go ahead and start attacking the computer if it doesn't work, or any other material, that we have in front of us. But she's talking about what? Relationships. She's talking about how we relate with one another. Because at the end of the day, you go home with upset because the AC of the car doesn't work, but you live. But if the cooling system of a relationship between A and B person is not working well, guess what? You'll be thinking about it. You will take that to bed. You will wake up the next day thinking about that misused bioenergy. She's talking about relationships. She's talking about our surroundings, how we connect with one another. Because we can have the worst AC, but if we get along, we would still be okay. Put the fan on and we would spread ourselves, we would be fine. But if the situation is heated and the environment is also hot, guess what? People will be breaking apart. It's important over here also that she brings to us that it is, again, it starts in the micro level. It's not something that it loses itself, it loses its way when we are talking about nations fighting with one another, right? So it starts with the very small cellular level in our physical body, our minds, our tissues, whatever. And then it gets entangled with other individuals, families with families, right? Counties. Like here in Maryland, we like to talk about county. Like, what county do you live in? You don't ask what city, right? It's like, what county? Counties with counties, so we'll acknowledge that. State with state, the rivalry of countries with countries. Thank God we stopped with planet Earth. Otherwise, we would be having battles, as we see in the movies, right? Of planets this, planet that, having battles. But it starts very small. It starts very small. And it's detectable already. Science is already detecting these things. How we act, how we perceive things, right? The impacts of in our lives on how others are deciding their lives or acting around ourselves. So it's nothing new. She's just reminding us of the necessity to restart manipulating this energy in a different way. Moving on. Its influence, however, is very easily detected in the emotions in areas affected by infirmities due to the psychological reactions they provoke in human relationships. I bring a passage here that she actually also mentions in the book when Jesus says the following. Verily, truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. And I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may glorify in the Son, may be glorified in the Son. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. Jesus 2,000 years ago reminded us that we can do the same thing that he did and even greater things. Or the things that we were doing then, greater things. The things that we're doing now, much greater things. So if we have challenges in our lives, guess what? They're coming to help us. So we can change. So we can make ourselves greater and make our environment greater as well. She then goes into the need to want, right? The drive, to display the drive to change our condition. Remember, we're talking about self-healing, right? It's important that I'll acknowledge again that this idea of self-healing is definitely for ourselves, and especially when we have someone that we are caring for or someone that we're living for that somehow needs some help healing themselves. Because if they're with us, we're connected with that disease, even though it's not in our physical body directly. We're connected if they are having some mental or some progressive issues, some kind of blockage. Otherwise, we wouldn't be reincarnated together. Those who come to the Spirit Center, if they come and they ask for the help, they knock on our doors, guess what? We're connected with it. You know, it's I don't want to give adjectives or ideas, but we often hear people saying, "Oh, this is not my problem. That this is happening in my town, in my city, or in this country." It is. If you're here, we're straight connected. If we have the government that we have a connection with that government. Not in the sense that we're doing the same thing, but we can change through our minds, through our behaviors, that mentality. Not through fight. Not that we're going to go out and, riots or anything like that, but change our behaviors. It's very easy to turn on the TV and get upset with what we're receiving. But what are we doing our day in, day out to change that condition? Have a purpose. It doesn't matter if I want to have a healthy body, health mind, but I don't have a purpose. If the purpose is to get healthy, and I'm going to use now a personal example when Leslie, about a year or 2 years ago, that had an instant, a situation with my back that I actually had to stay in bed. I couldn't move. Some of you remember. It was very limited for a couple weeks, and then after that, I was able to come to the center, receive the passes, and go home because I couldn't move. I could barely move. And if my purpose then was to get healthy and go back to the same things that I was doing before, guess what? I was going to get healthy, but I would go back to the same problem over and over and over. Because we have to acknowledge, and I was joking with Yasko earlier today, being tall, that depending on our physical body, there are certain limitations that we have to take care of. And thank God for those limitations. So it's not that we're going to get rid of the situation or the problem that we have, but we will learn how to live with it and learn how to live well without blaming others, without sacrificing the necessary things of life, but most importantly, to have a purpose. Practice. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. This change in our mind, we have to practice. Direction. Have a sense of direction in our lives as well. How am I directing this energy to heal in what areas of the physical body? That's why we have to study. Autonomy. Seriously. Understand our physical body. I remember very well, I had an opportunity to take an elective class in school, and because of that instance, that situation, some other as well, I was like, I'm going to take this elective class to understand a little bit of the physical body. We often come to the Spirit Center, we give passes, we hear the situation of the patient or the person who is asking for help, and we don't know how to act, or at least to understand what the problem is. So go. If you have a problem in your back, if you have a problem here or there, go read, understand. Because you will be more effective when you are directing your mind towards that location of your physical body. Long-term results. It's not going to change overnight. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. It's not something that we are praying right now for 5 minutes and that's going to change tomorrow. Now, It's very easy, and she says this, it's very easy for us to go ahead and make a mess out of our lives. But to fix it, it takes a long time. I'll give an example. Credit score. It takes a very minimal thing to go and destroy your credit. But to build your credit, it takes a long time. It takes a long time for you to tell the creditors, right, who's going to go back to the credit reporters and say, okay, Chris pays well. Jeanette pays her bill extremely well every month. And that takes a long time. When you go ask for credit, they check that. What's your history? So what is our history of thinking positively, of doing well to ourselves? God's love, through his superlative mercy, provides debtors with the opportunity to experience balance in order to motivate them to work for its full acquisition. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. Remember this part over here, because we will see on and talk about again when we are discussing when we are sick in bed. Okay? So she proposes 4 steps or 4 main areas that we have to focus, okay, in this process of self-healing. Number 1, I debated with myself, should I present this before I go into the topics? But I think we actually made ourselves with it if we present it. Observing one's thoughts and their preferred content in order to radiate positive, healthy energy. Number 2, keeping mental attunement with the source of power. Number 3, resting, a healthy diet, hygiene, and keeping activities in order. Channeling one's thoughts and emotions towards love, compassion, justice, equanimity, and peace. Okay? So number 1, observing one's thought and their preferred content in order to radiate positive, healthy energy. We talked about this before, and if I'm not mistaken, in discussing this book or Thought in Life. Have you ever analyzed your thoughts? Why you're thinking about A, B, or C? It's a simple question, and it's scary at times. It's interesting because every now and then I'll do that and say, okay, before answering, I say, okay, what led me to that thought? And sometimes we see something and we come across something and we're acknowledging, what happened, right? And you remember. Okay, so if something triggers a thought, we need to take care of it, especially if that is a negative thought. If I see something, I'll give an example, a purple car, and that purple car reminds me of something, I need to take care of it. Why does that sparks me a fear? Why does that sparks me some kind of feeling that is negative? As well as, analyze why this reminds me of something positive, right? Can't remember who I was talking to. We're doing this kind of function, group function at work, and we're talking about colors. We're talking about what we like, and the person said that he liked a certain color because that reminded him of his grandmother. That's a good thing, right? We have to acknowledge the positive things as well that comes to mind, because we want to emphasize it, we want to multiply it, right? But especially when it's something negative, we have to think, what is this? Or why do I get irate with this situation when what is that little thing that pulls our chain? And this is what we need to get to. Because when we are in the process of self-healing, if we don't do that, it's a loop. It just makes it worse. And it worse, and it worse, and worse, and it worse. Especially when we're going back to the moment when we got hurt or the situation that got us into that position. She says the following: the immediate attitude to have is to fervently desire health and not to merely be free from illness. There's a difference. Oh, I don't want this illness. Well, guess what? There are certain situations with the physical body that we cannot change. And thank God for them. However, we still desire health to be able to live with that condition in a positive way. If release from an illness does not engage the patient in positive mental and physical activities, it will open the door for other illnesses. The yearning for health must be accompanied by uplifting, achievable goals and not by immediate interest for the pleasures one wants to enjoy that would discharge waves of negative energy into the intricate, spiritual components responsible for the outcome. This desire for health is grounded in the belief and certainty that the Father does not want the destruction of the sinner, but of the sin, and chose who defraud, the law must be, and those, who defraud the law must make amends. We're going to talk about God, so I want to put this aside a little bit. This idea that the God does not want the destruction of the wrongdoer, but the action, right? The transformation of the action. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, Joanna de Angelis is talking about the changes in the perispiritual body, which is a consequence of our thoughts, the consequences of our want. It's not ibuprofen that we're taking, that we can take over the counter, because sometimes we're even afraid to get up and go see the doctor. It's not that change. That is a help. That is certainly something that we have to take. And thank God for medicine, right? But it's not that change. It's an internal change. It's me saying, I want this to happen. And I have a purpose. And you can promise yourself, once I get out of this, I will do A, B, C, I will live a better life. Irritation, anxiety, discontent, jealousy, and rebelliousness must be rejected whenever they try to sneak onto the mental landscape, for they bear harmful radiation that disrupts the cellular centers, upsetting the rhythm and reproduction of their own selves. So these thoughts, when they come to mind, which is natural that they will come to mind, that they will bear our heart. You know why? Because we have been doing over and over and over and over. So don't feel upset that, oh, why am I thinking this way? I'm a spiritist. I have to be positive. No, acknowledge that you're upset. However, what am I going to do with that thought is something completely different. How am I going to hold the horses without letting them go and to do more damage is what we need to do. Another positive note here. I used to think that way. That because I became a spiritist and I read a lot of these books and I still have to read many of them, how can I think that way? Well, I'm not perfect yet. And the conflict comes, right? And you're beating yourself up. And the energy that I was supposed to use to enlighten myself, connect with higher minds, connect with my mentor, I was fighting with myself. Until the day certain things happen, and it still happens that I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not perfect yet. Thank God, we're in a location, the families, also doesn't charge me. You are a spiritist. You shouldn't do this. But it happens. It happens. Ennobling ideas and plans for future beneficent activities are bearers of stabilizing energy, which stimulates the complex cellular feuds, rendering them harmonious and productive. When we have these thoughts, guys, what Joanna de Angelis is bringing to us is that we need to change them, replace them with ennobling ideas. This doesn't happen right at that second, and thank God if it does for you. If you try and it happens, I'll clap for you. But if you get into a process of irritation, or if you're getting the anxiety kicking in, right, and you try to change the ennobling or try to bring the ennobling ideas, back into your mind and heart, thank God. And if it happens fast, but usually this happens a day after, when you cool off, walk away and try to bring these ideas to mind. especially when we are in a tough position where we're sick and we're in bed, for example. We want to get out of that situation. So we need to change. And she says this over and over and over in several of other literatures that she brings to us. Many times Jesus said to the infirm that came to him, if you want it, it is done. And concluding, rise and walk, see, be cleansed, depending on the infirmity. Depending on the infirmity, right? This is Christ healing Simon Peter, or Peter's mother, or Peter's mother-in-law. Got tongue-tied there. I know it's the way they brought it, and it's actually a painting by John Bridges in 1839. But it's just a representation again that Joanna de Angelis brings to us, saying Jesus used to ask us, "Do you want to be healed?" And he invoked that idea on us that we wanted to change, not him only coming the outside, as we read in the message that she brought here. The light from outside is shining, but if we don't accept it, if we don't do our part, if we don't desire, it's not going to happen. Energy is all over us, within us. We just have to make sure that we are manipulating and accepting it. At that very moment, the patient exited the vibrational field of darkness where he or she once hid, and became receptive to the divine benefactor's powerful energy, which altered the problem area, restoring it to health. How many times we want something, we want the health, but we don't acknowledge. When somebody brings to us, we repel it for many reasons, right? I have come in contact with people that you're trying to help, you're trying to show the right way, and this has happened to me too, on the other way around, that people are trying to show you the way and you insist on the wrong path. And it's sad, because later on when you realize, you're like, wow, I wasted this, did that time, and I could have taken the different road. And you have to work twice as hard, so 3 times as hard to get back on the right path, right? So it's this invitational, and we have to make sure that we're acknowledging it. Thus, visualizing oneself as healthy in the future and then taking action to make it so are the key factors for self-healing. If we can go back and, as I was studying this, if we go back and think of a moment of our lives that we're feeling physically healthy, right? Mentally healthy, right? And spiritually as well. Or many other ways that we can bring. Try to bring that to your mind. Because we always, have our troubles or difficulties. And when we find ourselves in that discontent, to leave other ideas aside, you bring that perfect you back to mind, trying to restore your health. And again, I'm talking about the different ways of being healthy as well. That may be something that you want to do. A moment of laughter, right? A moment that you find yourself doing something that you enjoy. Not that you're going to be in la la land all the time, but at least something that brings you joy. That you can connect with that healthy moment and allow yourself to utilize the right energies to bring positivities to your life. Moving on. Keeping mental attunement with the source of power. What is the source of power? God. What kind of source of power do you believe in? God, okay? So what kind of God? I want to hear from you real quick. What kind of God? The supreme intelligence, okay? The Father, the forgiving one. All right, good. Now we're getting somewhere. Because it's subjective. And we will have our subjective ways because we know what they mean, the ideas that we have. But it's important that we bring this here. Now, acknowledge what you're saying, Aloysio. In the Spirit's book, the first question is, what is God? It's not who is God, it's what is God. God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. When we talk about the supreme intelligence, Can we acknowledge that supreme intelligence wants us to suffer? Well, if it's supreme intelligence, how can an intelligent being want something destructive, something negative for others? It doesn't go, it doesn't match, right? Can we believe that this supreme intelligence imposes suffering on others? Not that he or she wants us to suffer, but impose suffering onto others, or negative things, or tests that will make us suffer. Okay. That is the point that I want to get to. So you're saying that if it allows that to happen, it's for the good of humanity, right? Okay. But let's take a step back. What causes us to suffer? Huh? Our imperfection, our deviation from the right path. Are we going to be perfect from the first tries? No. It's natural that we'll make errors. So that in the law in itself that God, created, we see the perfection on its attunement or on the changes that we'll bring to ourselves with our own wrongdoings. Now, naturally, there will be consequences to those decisions that we made in the past, which will suffer, right? But the law created by God is perfect. Because in many situations, we also read in the Spirit's book that we can take a better pathway. And it's undisputable that we will make bad decisions, that we'll have to track back and make the right decisions again. However, we have other ways to go. And we know sometimes, right? The wrongdoers, when we do something wrong, we know it's like, this is not the right way. Now pay dearly for this. But we do it anyways, right? But God, my point here that this source of power is the supreme intelligence. So God does not want us to suffer. Want us to grow, and growth sometimes, or we should say, it requires effort. It requires hard work. It requires crying sometimes, right? The mothers know. A lot of crying for the kids, and they do it dearly, right? All love comes from God, the source of power. Consequently, the patient's mental attunement with that causality is essential for regaining health, connecting with God. Since infirmity is the result of vibratory disharmony in the body's organs, allowing for the proliferation of destructive elements, healing efforts must be aimed at balancing the energy field primarily, which in turn will recompose the denser structures of the body. Otherwise, stated, healing follows this spirit-matter sequence. Thus, a patient's mental oneness with the generating source of life is essential for reestablishing harmony. And then to finalize this part over here, and hence the cultivation of positive ideas leads to oneness with the higher vibratory bandwidths, which produces the necessary attunement with the supreme power. This connection with our Creator, with the source of life, is essential. Whatever we believe in, however we can connect with, and we'll see a little bit further down that obviously through prayer, as Alba mentioned earlier today. How do we connect with higher minds, with our mentors, with obviously God? By prayer. Why wait until we are sick to pray? But prayer shouldn't be something that we also do when we get up in the morning or before we go to bed. It's not that we're gonna, and I remember Raul saying this on many, many years ago on one of his talks, saying, it's not that we're gonna, get to work, okay, now I have to pray. Now I'm gonna start a task, I'm gonna have to pray. No. But think positively. Wanting positively. What is the outcome of your tasks? By the time you're thinking in a positive way, you're connecting with higher minds. You are living in prayer. And I'm not here to judge or to criticize anyone who does do the prayer before they start everything and anything they do. Thank God for those minds because I can't, But there are also people when they see a challenge, they look at it, okay, we're going to change that little by little, step by step, right? But we also have to preserve ourselves because Jesus also exemplified this by telling us, watch and pray. He had the moments that he secluded himself and he prayed. He asked others to pray as well, especially when we're going through tough moments. Those who breathe pure air detoxify quicker, expanding their breathing capacity. Likewise, mental attunement with the source power helps reestablish health energy, which then reinstates the body's lost equilibrium. This in turn restores vibrational harmony, fostering the predominance of the agents of health. Utilizing our physical body to exemplify how we would do with our mental and spiritual condition. Breathe. One must lift oneself up to God, not just to ask for immediate benefits, but also to stay in harmony with life itself. Such a state of attunement opens the doors to one's extra physical perception to inspiration, balance, and courage to face any foreseen or unforeseen disturbing events and situations. When one uplifts him or herself to God, all humanity is uplifted. Let's think collective. As everything that we were saying here, the idea is self-healing, but as we do for ourselves, we're doing for others. If we see someone in a tough position, let us offer these ideas. Interesting enough, I was actually talking to a friend at work, and she was telling me some of the things that is happening with a family member, of disturbing thoughts, dreams as well, and conditions that is kind of very disturbing for the person, not a spiritist. And I proposed the God at home. I didn't say that I get the Spirit's book with, this way or that way, but explain to her, why don't you gather your family, and pray together. Read a passage of the Bible. I know the person is Catholic. Open the Bible, read, have a moment with your family. And quite frankly, that situation is going to come up and you will have the answer. That you'll be able to talk to that family member and find collectively the solution for that individual. Because if they reincarnated as a family, guess what? They're all involved and they need to help one another. Right? So connect with this source of energy, of power. Attunement with God, the source of power, is the cause of happiness and an agent of peace. Moving on, resting, a healthy diet, hygiene, and keeping activities in order. I brought a lot of text so you don't think that Leo is saying these things, okay? So bear with me. Some of the things are repetitive, but it's important because the moment that we are in trouble and we are in despair or we're facing a tough situation, we easily allow ourselves to not take care of our bodies, to not take care of ourselves. And we live for others, we live for other situations. And the most important things that is taking care of ourselves, putting the mask before we help someone, it doesn't happen. And we can all question, right? A mother would question, obviously we would put the mask in our kids first and, all those things. But we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. The way she finishes, to me, and in a way, she acknowledges that idea as well, that the keeping order in our activities, by the moment that you decide to take care of yourself, you're already keeping order in your activities. She says the following: physical rest is highly important for self-healing. However, mental rest, which results from harmonious thoughts, is absolutely vital, a must for regaining one's health. A mind at rest does not imply idleness, but positive action that generates balance. This in turn provides rest for perturbing agitation, emotions and feelings responsible for illness and suffering. There is a difference of resting and being idle, slash, or mundane way to say it, being lazy. We don't want to get to that point because that will bring even more imbalance to our lives. Let us rest. Let us find something that really rests us, right? I we have the different ways to get connected with relaxing ways of life. You know, watching a movie, watching this, watching that. But we have to be selective even with that, right? What are we reading? What are we watching on the internet? All of these things. Everything that, it's very readily, usable or ready for us to use, we have to question. And sometimes what we think that is helping us, it's not. And we truly have to rest. Sometimes resting doesn't mean sleeping, because some people, they cannot sleep for too many hours. Some of us can sleep for several hours and then it becomes the idleness. But what rests your mind, right? What rests your mind? I have encountered situations where I couldn't sleep, but I told myself, at least my body's resting. If I cannot sleep, leave it alone. Don't fight it. I used to fight a whole lot. Waking up in the middle of the night, okay, I can't sleep now. Oh, the body's resting. Then allow yourself to think of, bring positive thoughts into your mind. There is a story that I heard that Chico Xavier, before falling asleep, and he used to do this diligently, he used to start to walk around the neighborhood thinking, not physically, thinking, and blessing the neighbor's house. Bless this person, bless that person. So if you find yourself with insomnia, start doing that. So, and truly visualize you getting out of the house, going to your neighbor's house, and bless this house, bless that house. Or if you want to do that towards work or somebody at the center, right? If it is the day that you will be going to the center, start thinking about the center. Who am I going to meet? Oh, bless this person. How is that person? Hopefully she's sleeping well. He's sleeping well. So that's an idea. Uplifting and optimistic literature, rich with hope, provides mental and physical relaxation, predisposing the body to tranquility and harmony. Such rest may also be achieved by way of well-balanced diet that avoids excesses, especially foods that are high in calories or are hard to digest and assimilate. The correct approach entails eating to live, respecting the limits imposed by one's infirmity, instead of living to eat, which complicates the functions of an already debilitated body that needs all of its resistance to recover. And I know the picture is a little bit funny, but this is so true. About a month ago, I was talking to, and this is something that I don't do much because the time is so limited, but I found myself talking to a couple guys at the gym. I was talking to the owner. It's a small gym, and we started this conversation, and one of the gentlemen, well built, and you can see that he looks very healthy. He started talking about his transformation, and one of the things that he came to say that if there was something that he was very not ashamed to say it, but he was actually regretted the most was the way he used to live his life, the excesses of life, especially with eating. And that caused him a lot of trouble before he got to the point that he is now, healthy, right? But if he could have changed, he could change something in his life, he would do it while he was, young. And it's interesting, after I heard that, I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. Because he was able to come to his senses early enough in life, even though he is at a certain age at this point, but he changed. Imagine someone who discarnate and have this feeling of regret. That not only mentally, but also physically, because it's a consequence. We don't take care of ourselves. We go through the excesses of life, and we're imposing on ourselves this guilt that now we have to reincarnate with, right? because it's going to be in our conscience, perhaps processed in a positive way, but we will have to reestablish health. Not God imposing, right, imbalance, but us having to rescue the balance that we did not foster in a previous moment. So let us take care of ourselves now. It's never too late, as it wasn't late for him, but it's something that we have to acknowledge. Hygiene also plays a major role in regarding one's health. It helps in, regain, excuse me. It helps in the elimination of toxins while providing a pleasant sensation of lightness. Physical hygiene also requires mental hygiene, whose content, if polluted by pernicious preferences, causes the breakdown of the body's inner workings, like, reuse, I guess, in mechanical parts that must work harmoniously. The shower is a perfect moment for us to take care of our mental hygiene. As the water is running, don't take the 3-hour showers, as I know some individuals do. But, and the person knows. We're in a small group here, perhaps, but it is in this room, right? But allow yourself to come in contact with the cleansing, with the transformational that is happening in the shower. It's not a joke, seriously. I'll tell you something in a way funny for me. The shower is actually the moment for me that I start thinking about what I have to do throughout the day, and I recollect my dreams at time. I recollect things that I have to do that I perhaps had forgotten the night before. It's amazing, but it's a process that I allow myself to do so. And I start doing more and more because I heard of others saying, do this way, do that way, right? The same way that we do the intelligent sleep, before we go to sleep, we start thinking, positive things. We can do the same thing in the shower. The intelligent bath, thank you. These factors bring order to activities unaffected by illness, or to those that, despite the health problem, deserve consideration and planning for later implementation. Think about the future, right? What I cannot do now, hopefully I'll be able to implement in the future. So it's having that proactive mind. This is the part that I would like to have everyone pay attention to, because it's not that we are desiring people to be in the bed, right, or to be sick. But Joanna de Angelis reminds us of the following. The sick bed is the place for profound medication and goal setting. Meditation, I think, which the daily grind does not otherwise allow for. At the same time, a review of one's acts and behavior is timely, in that one can seek to uncover the origin of some of one's current ills, or the effects of the thoughtless actions that have caused them. Embrace the moment that we are sick, that we have to stop and renew ourselves. And I'll go back to my personal account. I remember thinking clearly, what have I done to deserve this? In a good sense. I wasn't blaming others. What caused this? And I came to find out that in the physical aspect, when I was sitting, I wasn't sitting. I was throwing myself. When I was getting out of the car, I wasn't getting out of the car. I was jumping out of the car, rushing, running everything that I did. Nowadays, I do things a little bit more slower, because I know that the 200 plus pounds, cannot move of someone who is a little bit smaller. Something simple. But what about the conscience? What was causing me to run? What happened to time? Right? So beyond the physical, there was something before that was actually causing the disturbance, if we can think of it that way. Organic degeneration is quick and easy, whereas recover is complex and time consuming. Building and rebuilding takes time and experience, which is not the case with destructive action. A healthy life, therefore, is the product of concentrated efforts for the maintenance of the body's components under the balanced command of the spirits. In all creation, the law of equality is in force, according to which no one enjoys happiness by exception. The struggle is the common denominator for all beings on the path of evolution. This is key right here. Even though she talks about this idea of equality in this term of self-healing, we're not going into the details of the law of equality that we study in the Spirit's book. But it's interesting that we have something in common. Sometimes we like to say, "Oh, this person has a better life than I do," but we never say this person suffered just as I do. We don't. We forget that suffering, even though different in different aspects and different levels, we all have it. We see people who have everything that we think that is everything, but they're miserable. They're miserable. One thing that Jasmine, I forget her last name now. She is very studious and dedicated spiritist in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It's actually in one of her books. I don't see it here, but she says the following, that Jesus is so far away from us in terms of evolution, right? But if one thing that we can get very close to Jesus and to what he brought to us is the suffering. What he went through while reincarnated on earth, and what he went through as well to get to the level that he is now. It gets very close to us. Yes, we will get there one day, and it's very far, but it's close to us in that sense. So the law of equality, remember that part, that you're not the only one suffering. Others are suffering as well. To finalize, channeling one's thoughts and emotions towards love, compassion, justice, equanimity, and peace. The last law that we will study in the Spirit's book as well, right? Where are we in on the studies now of the Spirit's book on Thursday? Huh? So, where are the hopes and solaces? Okay, all right. So the laws are done. So we went through that, right? We know, and it's uplifting, right? It's warning in a good sense that the Spirit brings to us these laws for us to understand the environment and understand ourselves, because ultimately they are in our conscience. She says the following: optimistic thinking predisposes one to an emotional state receptive to health. Thus, it is easy to channel it towards the ennobling expression of love, compassion, justice, equanimity, and peace. The magic Elon that will unite all people someday. Love must be cultivated as a new experience, the practice of which will become a habit, a normal state of spirit. Why are we talking about compassion, love, justice, equality, and peace? Why do we get sick? Why do we get sick? We lack. We're not walking with, right? We're not attuned with these ideas. Because if we were, we wouldn't do harm to ourselves, we wouldn't do harm to others. Therefore, we would not fall into the consequences to the abysm that we sometimes fall into. Because when we think about self-healing, the first thing that we think is this: take this medicine, rest, sleep, don't do anything. Nowadays, it's common for doctors to say, don't do a thing, don't even move. Well, how can you tell somebody who worked and dedicated his life to the family or whatever to not do anything? We have to a certain degree with limitations, but we have to continue moving. Our physical body demands such a thing, right? Or in certain areas, we also see the advancement of medicine that perhaps now you have to move after a surgery, right? Because you have to, bring oxygen to the body and everything. But the idea is we're getting away from compassion. We're deviating from love. Where is the justice that God is forgiven for everybody. And why am I judging? Why am I asking something that I cannot ask from that individual? Thus hurting myself, because when I expect something from others and they cannot deliver, guess what? We'll get upset. We'll get upset. That is the reason why, and you guys nailed it. That's the reason why we're talking about this. So in our self-healing, we have to include this. Because at the bottom of our thoughts, of our feelings, we will find that the root cause of our problems lies right here. Love's power restores one's confidence in people and in life, for its presence produces stimuli that enable the blood to periodically receive revitalizing charges of adrenaline that reinvigorate the body. Through its optics, events reveal previously unseen aspects, keeping the emotions from becoming either deadened, or overexcited, while at the same time predisposing one to the humanizing quality of compassion. When the combined forces of fear and anger, bitterness and revenge, jealousy and hatred begin to perturb the emotions, the sentiment of compassion for the tormentor, presenting him or her as fragile and vulnerable, prevents imbalance from turning into aggression on the part of the victim. The victim then sees the opponent as a sickly soul, unaware of the gravity of his or her own wrong, and instead of becoming hostile, the victim envelops the tormentor in waves of sympathy and understanding, thus avoiding returning a wrong for a wrong. The best way to exemplify this, and I'm not doing this in a negative way, when we get sick, that we lose a capability and we are treated by someone else, we see how vulnerable we are. And then we think about it. How can I ask this for this person, something negative, when I cannot even move my body? And sometimes that is the moment that people change. That is the moment that sometimes people are getting themselves ready to go back to our true citizenship, which is a spiritual one. Unfortunate, but it happens. Unfortunate, but it happens. So when we realize that we are this vulnerable, and without being in that position, we're better off. Because we'll think before we attack someone, we're not compassionate. We try to take justice, right, or promote justice with our own hands. The wrong justice, not God's justice. So it's important that we pay attention to these moments of our lives. The self-healing requires this connection with love, compassion, justice, and equality, and peace. To finalize, within the framework of the ills that afflict humans, we find lodged in the perisphere various matrices of hatred, resentment, and bitterness towards other people. And again, we have to make sure that we get rid of these sentiments, these feelings. Actually, no, there is a little bit more. I'm sorry. Love offers the compassion that one would like to receive if the situations were reversed. It decreases the intensity of the blow and nullifies its harmful effects. Compassion speaks of God's inexorable justice, which reaches everyone and requires benevolence towards one's opponent, rendering him or her, albeit indirectly, aware of the fact that a wrong is always worse for the one who commits it. Justice, in turn, is already engraved on each person's conscience, and although it may be anesthetized for some time, it can never be completely suppressed. Wrongdoers know their error, and they try to hide it because they know its origin. Merely covering up a wound does not keep it from infecting the surrounding area. Justice in the conscience demands reparation for the offense and its unfortunate consequences, inducing victims not to act as debt collectors, since the sovereign laws have the means to prevent new debts when old ones are being paid. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about how we're acting within ourselves and the surroundings as well. I'll go back that what we think sometimes is just a mild headache, the root is planted someplace else. The cause is someplace else. It's not the blue chair. It's not the sun. Yes, I mean, if we get exposed to the sun for too long, we'll probably faint and we're not going to feel well. But if we have these reoccurrences in our lives where I don't feel this way, I don't feel that way, I'm too agitated or something, we need to think. Anxiety, other detrimental feelings or thoughts that we are having, we have to watch. And it's a long process. So if we can start it tonight after this message, let us do so. Now to finalize, during the self-healing process, the spirit recoups spent energies and use thought to vitalize its paraspiritual centers, predisposing it to redemption through love. It does not negotiate benefits, but desires to be useful to society, an active member of overall progress instead of an unhappy, unpleasant weight on the social economy. I know it's deep. The co-author of its own recovery, the spirit draws wholesome energies from the providential source of God's love, leaving the darkness of infirmity for the light of health, willing to contribute decisively to a better world today and tomorrow, renewed, enlightened, and happy. I never thought that I would come in contact with economics when talking about Joanna de Angelis, right? But she does. Because what we do is summing up, right? Or draining, taking away from others as well. Because if we have a number, let us think of the quantity of energy that we have around ourselves. And we're not using this to multiply life. What are we doing? We're not creating a surplus. So we're sucking that energy, right? If all that I think is to gain from me only, or to take benefit of others or situations, I'll leave a hole around myself that somebody else will have to fill in. And we feel this when we come in contact with certain situations, certain individuals, that all that we feel is that void within us, and we feel tired. We feel less, right? We're talking about this energy that we are not utilizing. And we bring this weight to the social economy, to the whole of planet Earth, and consequently, the other planets around us as well. So if you think that you're not putting a weight or you cannot make a difference on the social economy of our solar system, we can. That's how we are connected. We are the co-authors. The same way we brought imbalance, now we can bring balance back to ourselves. If you see someone suffering that needs this self-healing process, remember these 4 things. Remember these 4 areas that we covered tonight, right? One is very easy because we're supposed to do every day of our lives, right? But observe our thoughts. Ask the person, or ask ourselves first, obviously. What am I thinking? Keep the mental attunement with God, prayer, rest. Make sure we're healthy in every aspect. Do not wait until we discarnate to realize that we messed up. Too much black beans, not good for me. And making sure that we are channeling our thoughts towards love, compassion, justice, equality, and peace towards everyone. So I know it's a lot, and we went through quite a bit of information, and I don't think we're able to record this well. But if anything, we will redo this again and I'll work with Daniel so we can present it because it's a reminder. When I read this chapter, what came to mind is this should be a reminder that I should read at least every 3 months. At least every 3 months to keep it fresh in our minds. And the reason I was saying about when we started in terms of thanking everybody to be here on this sunny day is that Daniel and I we talked about this a couple of times that during the summer the Spiritist Center, and we have talked about this as well with other Spiritist centers. Usually the house is the number of people kind of diminish, right? People are go on vacation. They kind of I guess the sun brings the energy that they can find in the Spiritist Center, and they kind of go away. But tonight was different, right? Tonight was a different thing. Tonight it's different reality because we're all here. This house is full, and I think we want to get closer to God. We want to get closer to this self-healing process that we want so much. It's not only of the physical body, because apparently, and I can testify that everybody looks healthy, but we have deep inside of us another stride to make. And I think that tonight, by our effort, we will receive this healing because we attended our needs. It's not that I'm presenting myself or to others that I'm going to the Spirit Center or I'm doing something positive. I'm attending my own needs, not being selfish, obviously, but to say I want to be a better individual. So congratulations for that, and thank you for this moment as well. I'll open up for a couple questions, couple comments if you'd like to make, so we can move on to our passes and then our second part that we'll have our dinner tonight. Any comments? Any questions?
No, it's very quick. Just when you say, "Oh, I was jumping from the car," there were like 2 occasions in my life when I noticed the way I was driving was causing me pain on my arms, but I didn't realize that. So I went to the doctor. I have pain in my arms. What have you done? Are you an athlete? Did you practice any kind of sport? Do you have a kid? Did you lift weight? He said, yeah, the groceries. He said, interesting. What else? Do you drive? I said, yeah, manual. Ah, okay. And then he said, okay, sit here. Now tell me the movements you make, when you are driving. And immediately the person, see how stressed you are? Look at the way you are performing here in front of me. It's not even a real situation. Today, when you go home, when you drive from here to home, observe yourself. My God, that was, for me, when I came home, I said, my God, I'm driving like a robot. Of course, I was stressed. I worked the whole day, you know what I mean? Where we have been working together. So then now I pay attention. When I have that same pain, I said, I'm doing again. And you're right. God knows whatever we do, and then we are,
I think it's interesting, the point of realization, right? You have to, and we need this, and that's why I'll bring again the Spiritist Center or whatever we like to attend, or the place that we like to attend, that will have these enlightened minds to remind us or to say, what are you doing? Because sometimes in our craziness of the everyday, right, we don't notice. And I already mentioned this to her, so I'll say it again here. I'll bring a personal case and bring another person. My mother's the same way. Every time I see her driving, okay, the wheel is not gonna go anywhere. It's gonna stay in front of you. But she holds that thing dearly. It's like, and then she complains about the back, the shoulders, right? I used to encounter that issue as well when I was working as a driver many years ago with my knee. Working with the clutch and everything, a big truck. And it was the same thing. After I started noticing, guess what? Yeah, at the end of the day, normal wear and tear, you're tired, but you're not putting too much emphasis. The stress that you put in that part of the body, that later on, years later, you will feel it. Why? So we need to stop and we need to think. Observe our thoughts. Why am I putting so much tension? I went about 5 or 6 years ago. Went actually doing extremely things repelling, right? Jumping from rocks and doing things like that. And with the instructor, the person said, do not hold the rope because the rope is not going to go anywhere. And I remember holding the rope like my hand was, and I had a glove. It was purple. It was like getting purple. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, but what was holding me was right here in my waist. And once I let go and I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. I mean, why am I fighting? And I bring this example because, there are certain things that we put our energy into that's effortless, right? I mean, you're just wasting energy. Why we're holding to certain things in our lives that is not helping us at all. So, yep.
Thank you, Leito, for bringing dissecting the chapter for us. Literally, two things caught my attention. The first one is about the bioenergy. And my understanding of it is like since we are creatures of God, we were created by a supreme intelligence, we contain this energy in ourselves. And how this energy is going to help us to our own process of healing. That's my first take. The second one, although Joanna says self-healing, meaning we are not going to ask to someone to come here and heal us, like a miracle thing. I was thinking that nowadays, or at least in this side of the planet in which we are living and we are blessed to be living, we have resources at our hand that we can use in this process of self-healing. So for instance, one of the things is when Joanna says, observe your thoughts, sometimes we need a mirror, right, to observe those thoughts. So therapy is a good option. Learning how to meditate. I don't know, going to a retreat. Like there are some resources out there that can help us. Nowadays we can have some special diet, like especially for your own needs with this app in your own phone, and you can customize things for you. So what my point is, like, yes, it is up to me, the spirit. I am responsible for myself and for healing myself, in the sense like I didn't decide to listen to or to follow God's laws. Now I'm basically dealing with the consequences, and I need to clean up the mess that I did with love and kindness towards myself. But let us use the resources that are out there that help us in this self-healing.
Thank you, Alba. It is true. If we didn't have an excuse then, when I say that our past, to not get better, we don't have it today. Because everywhere we look, we acknowledge today, for example, the AC, right? We acknowledge that we're sitting. We acknowledge that we have technology with us. There's so much positiveness in our lives that we forget. And we use it for the negative things. There's so many things happening in the world that we don't connect, the positive things of the world. So yes, it is true. I mean, we can customize this self-healing in every way possible that we can imagine. With technology, without technology. If the technology is a distraction, don't use it. Again, I'll bring the example of the gym. I often see people working out. They work out for 10 minutes, and the other 50 or whatever amount of time they're on the phone, texting, taking pictures, and all those things. It's just amazing how it consumes us. It really, takes our time. Or people are talking on the phone, and it's just, so if it's not for you, don't do it. If it realize that if this is going to take my time from what I'm supposed to do, don't use it. Yeah, leave it home, right? Or put it on the corner or something. But it is true. And on what she also mentioned, Joanna de Angelis will talk about the disobsession therapy and the alternative therapies as well. That is to our disposal, that we can utilize and change ourselves. So it is certainly true. Are you going to say something else?
Yeah, today I was listening to one of the talk. Always I connect to the talk of the day. I think in the through self-healing, you have to change your purpose. Like you said, if after I'm healed, I go back to the same lifestyle, it doesn't change. So this, De Luca, I think he was talking about this friend that had some liver problem. And he said, well, I'm going so many times, I've so many months already getting the passes. Can't you give me stronger passes? I think your passes are not working, De Luca. So he was disturbed. I said, how come someone is saying my passes are not good? So one day he was praying, and he asked his mentor, what's going on? Can you just, help? And the mentor said, ask him what he would do if today he got healed, no more problem in his liver, what he will do. So he said, okay, I'm going to ask. So he said, well, how about if now I tell you, or doctor say, no more problem in the liver, what you going to do? Oh, De Luca, the first thing I would go to the bar to drink because I'm dying to have that particular drink. So the mentor said, you see, when you are receiving the passes, they said, this yes, this not. This will go on a little healing, the other one no. Because the person wants to continue to be sick, like Jesus always said. What do you want? Do you really want to be healed? Because if you want to continue to be a victim, because you always have attention from people, you're not going to be healed.
Joanna de Angelis briefly reminds us of this, right? That the mercy of God through pain, through these destructive, for our eyes, destructive endings, right? Allows us or stops us from getting ourselves deeper in the hole. Imagine if he didn't have the blessing of the disease. And it's hard to say such a thing, the blessing of the disease. He would be drinking. He would be connecting with more spirits who also like to drink, right? Enhancing his connectivity with other minds that are not positive, right? Affecting others, bringing more pain to his family members. So sometimes, guess what? It's necessary. Correct. Yes. So it's important, folks, that we recognize our situation, our limitations. That doesn't mean we're going to live a life of acknowledgement and being grumpy all the time. I have this problem. I have to suffer this. Let's do it with joy. Nowadays, when I look something heavy and I want to lift something heavy, I stop, I think, I bless. I lift. I will not say to myself, well, you cannot do it. There are certain things that I do. I'll say, no, that's not for me. I will not do this because I know the pain. But I will think twice. And that's just a physical thing. But what about the other limitations? The things that I cannot bear. I will not engage in this conversation because it's going to lead me to A, B, or C detrimental condition. I don't like to talk about this. For the time being, guess what? I'm going to avoid it. Because I know that the results will not be good. And if I'm not saying something positive, for sure, I'm not thinking, I'm not feeling something positive, right? And I'm saying I because I want to put myself, I don't want to say that you feel this way, but it's for all of us. And that's why I said that this chapter, it's a reminder that it's a trimestral reminder for all of us. So thank you for your comments. Thanks for bearing with the long text and the reminders that Joanna de Angelis brings to us. And the next session, we will talk about this obsession therapy that we have here at the Spiritist Center. This obsession therapy also is not only at the Spiritist Center, it happens in our houses. How? Come and we'll talk about it. Come and we'll talk about it. But remember, because going back to the conversation that I had with the friend that are having issues with one of its, her family members, I asked her, do you pray at home? She's like, yeah, we go to church. The second thing was, hey, we'll go to church. Okay, well, but what kind of moments of prayer do you have at home? Is it a structure? Is it just getting up the morning and saying the Lord's Prayer or whatever it is? It's important too, but what kind of structure do you have? And the disobsession can also happen in our houses. When we're praying, if you want to have a cup of water next to your bed before you go to bed, pray, and then you drink the water. Leave something for the morning that you do the same thing. And you do this over and over and over. Guess what? The help will be there as well. So this is just for us to prepare ourselves for the next session so that we are in tune with it and you can start practicing. And if you do find yourself, wanting or wanting to sharing something, please do so, because it happens in all in our lives, right? If you know something, share with us. Send us text or email, whatever it is, because it also happens in our lives. I would like to hear from you as well in the future to see how these sessions are improving our lives. Because the only thing I can ask is to really, you guys to share with me and to the entire group how this plentiful realization is helping your life as well. Because other than that, what we do with it, it's up to us, right? So I thank you again. I'll ask Alba just to